There we go. All right, everyone. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our Aquariums Online Academy. My name is Talia. I'm from our Education Department, and I'm excited to share a little bit of my morning with you. Today, we're actually going to be talking about one of my favorite habitats today, or a home for one of our animals. We're going to be talking about tide pools today. So I'm excited for us to learn a little bit more about what is a tide pool, what types of animals might live there, and then what are some things that might help them out in their home, because this can be a pretty challenging habitat to interact in and live in. So that's kind of what we're going to be exploring today. Now, during our exploration today, if you have any questions, and you're watching this live at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning, you're welcome to text those questions in to a phone number. And that phone number is 562-286-1838. Again, that number is 562-286-1838. And if you have any younger viewers watching, just make sure you get parents' permission because texting rates may apply. So you're welcome to text in your questions. If you are curious about something, please feel free to send those in. If you're watching this a little bit later after we've aired live on Wednesday morning, you are welcome to email those questions instead, and that email address is live@lbaop.org. So those are two ways to interact with us depending on when you're watching our program. So yeah, please feel free to text in questions during our live broadcast. So let's start off, my friends, with trying to figure out what is a tide pool. So I have my friend Miss Carrie helping me out in the studio today. She's going to be in charge of all the magic happening behind me here. So maybe we can look at some images of a tide pool to try to figure out a little bit more about what this sort of home looks like. Okay. So this is a pretty good representation of what a tide pool might look like if we're kind of looking into the very pool part of the tide pool. So the tide pools are kind of a really interesting habitat. A lot of times you can find them sort of by cliffs or maybe even right next door to a beach. And they're sort of where the land and the ocean meet. And there's a bunch of rocks there. And the water sort of washes over. Sort of washes over all these rocks here. And there's little holes or little pools in the rocks. And tide pools can be really, really small. They can be like as small as a teacup, and they can be really, really big. They can be as big as a bathtub. And then the water stays behind a lot of times in these pools, and all sorts of animals live there and call it their home. So this is sort of what a tide pool looks like. You got kind of the sandy beach over here, and you have all these rocks out a little bit further. So have any of you ever been to a tide pool before? I know I like to go tide pooling a little bit when I was little, but I was lucky enough to have some off of our coast. But yeah, it's definitely a really cool local habitat that you might be able to explore depending on where you are in the world. So tide pools are very interesting because they have to deal with some things that some other habitats might not have to deal with. So first off, you might notice there's not only a lot of water, there's a lot of waves. So the waves will crash over these rocks. And so some animals might have to think about how are they going to hold on when this wave comes over so I don't get knocked off my home and go on an adventure in the middle of nowhere. So they might need to think about how am I going to hold on or stay put when there's a lot of waves coming through. Because they're next to the beach and stuff, they have to deal with the tides. So they have to deal with water coming in and getting really high and water going out. And the place they might be in might be getting a little bit drier, might be out of the water completely. So they have to think about how can I stay a little bit wet? Because they don't have lungs like us. A lot of the animals that live there, they have gills or they breathe through their skin. So they might have to think about how am I going to stay a little bit moist, a little bit damp, so that I'm okay until the water comes back in. And then because the water might go out, it might get a little hot too. So they have to deal with a little bit of water going away and maybe a little bit of drying out as well. So they definitely have some special things that are in them or on them to help them survive in this pretty challenging habitat. So we like to call those special things that are in an animal or on an animal adaptations. So do we have adaptations as humans? Wait, we have fingers. We especially have thumbs. Thumbs are really helpful. And those help us explore. Those help us grab onto something. Those help us open jars. Those help us open doors and things like that. So hands help us as humans. We have lungs to help us breathe. We have feet to help us walk. I know you can't see my feet, but trust me, there's feet down there. Help me walk. So there's some things that help us as humans explore our world and live where we are up on land. And then our friends in the ocean have some special things to help them out as well. So let's start exploring some of the animals that live in our tidal homes. And I think I want to start out with our sea star friends. I'm going to have Miss Carrie put up some images or a picture of a sea star, and we'll start exploring those a little bit more. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to text those in. Again, that phone number is 562-286-1838. You guys are welcome to text in questions if you are curious about something. Aha! So we have some beautiful pictures of, or a picture, I should say, of many sea stars here on the screen behind me. So I think one of the things that is fascinating about this picture, I think, is these are all the same type of sea star. They're all called bat stars, so B-A-T, like, because they have webbing in between their legs. They look a little bit thicker, kind of like a bat wing. That's kind of what I think scientists were reminded of when they saw these stars. So these are all bat stars, but look at how many different colors there are. There's different colors. There's different patterns. This one kind of has some tie-dye going on over here. But yeah, there's orange ones. There's actually a dark orange and a light orange and a purple and a tie-dye and some kind of like red orange down here. This one actually has kind of speckles on it. This is like hot pink over here. And also I noticed, ooh, that's another interesting thing. Right over there, most of my sea star friends have 5 arms on them, but this friend over here has more, right? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoa! This friend has 6 arms instead of 5, which is kind of the norm. And that's because one of the things that sea stars can do that's pretty cool, that helps them out in their home, is they have the ability to regenerate their arms. What that means, if something tried to eat a sea star for a snack and they said, aha, I have your arm, and they lost an arm, they're able to very slowly, over time, regrow that arm back. So that might be why this friend over here might have 6 instead of 5. So sometimes, if depending on how the arm is lost, if it's not like a clean break, sometimes if there's like a little chunk versus the whole arm, sometimes they get an extra limb like this, which is pretty cool. So yeah, some stars naturally have more than 5. Some of them might have a little bit of some regeneration going on over there. So yeah, sea stars are a very cool animal that live in tide pools. Now, remember we said one of the things that tide pool friends have to think about is they have to think about, how am I going to stay on if a wave comes over me? So one of the things that sea stars have to help them out is on the underside of those arms, they are lined with very, very sticky little feet. They kind of look like little suction cups, and those help them stick on, in this case, to the glass of one of our exhibits, but they will definitely stick onto rocks wherever they are, and that will help them hold on if a wave comes by. They also use these tube feet to help them explore. They help them move. This is one of my friends moving along. You can see the kind of lift up these 2 feet towards the end here, and that helps them move. So I'm going to put one in front of the other, 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 and they will slowly move along the rock. So they do move. I know they look very, very still a lot of times when we see them in exhibits, but if you come back in a bit, you might notice that some of them are in different locations. One of the other things that sea stars' tube feet help them do is they help them eat. Because one of the favorite foods of sea stars are things like clams and mussels. And these are animals that live in 2 shells. So they have to think about, how am I going to open the shell? They don't have fingers and hands like us. So how am I going to do that? And they're going to use their really, really sticky feet to help them out. So they will give their food a great big hug with their sticky feet. They will pry it open just a little bit. And then they're going to do something really weird and really gross, but really awesome. The way that sea stars eat is they take their stomach out of their body. They will stuff it into whatever they're trying to eat, flip it inside out, turn whatever they're eating into soup, and then swallow their stomach back into their body, which is really weird, but really gross, but really awesome. So that is how the sea stars eat, and they'll use their sticky tube feet to help them out. Can you imagine if we ate like that? That would be really weird. If we came over, Mom's like, hey, dinner's ready, here you go, and you're like, thanks, Mom, it looks delicious, and put your stomach on the plate. That would be weird. That wouldn't be good table manners where I'm from. So I'm glad we don't eat like sea stars, and we keep our tummies in our bodies. But yeah, sea stars will take their tummy out to help them eat. Oh my goodness. Now, one of the other things, actually, you can see it actually pretty well in this picture too. You might notice that our sea stars, if you look really close at their skin, it kind of looks scaly. If you were to touch a sea star, it's not very soft. They actually feel pretty hard. And that's another thing that's going to help them not only just be kind of tough and protect them a little bit, that's going to help them live in kind of a harsher environment like a tide pool as well. So that's going to help protect them. Now, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, my friends, and talk about another animal that lives in a tide pool that is very, very squishy and has some tentacles to help them out. Let's see if Miss Carrie can read my mind. Yay! Oh, good job. She did. Huzzah. Yay! Ooh, and there's some sea star friends hanging out in the background. Nice. We have a connective thread today. It's beautiful. All right, so I'm going to talk about some anemones next. I've actually never seen this picture before, so this is cool. I'm learning too. Now, these are some giant green anemones. In the front here, there's like one hide. Actually, there's a couple. There's a lot. There's a couple hiding there. There's this friend in the middle. There's like probably two more here. And then there's this little blobby friend up there. That is actually another anemone too, but that one is closed, and this one is open. Sometimes I think they look like little donuts when they close up, but that is helping them. Sometimes when they're like that, they're taking a nap. Sometimes when they're like that, they might be working on some breakfast or some lunch or a snack. So yeah, that is one that is closed versus these ones that are all open. So this animal has a couple other different strategies to help it out. It does have a really sticky bottom, not exactly as thin and flexible as the 2 feet of our sea stars, but they have one big suction cup on the bottom of their body here that helps them stick onto a rock. They are not as mobile as the sea stars. They want to try their very best to stay in one spot. So that suction cup is really, that big muscular foot is really trying really hard to stay on the rocks as the wave crashes over them. They are much more flexible though. So I feel like when you're in a tide pool, you sort of have two different strategies. You either want to be really tough like the sea stars, or you want to be really flexible and kind of go with the flow and the motion of the ocean a little bit more, like our anemone friends here. You can actually see their body a lot more in this shot, and then their big muscular foot will be right. You can see it's very close to the rock here. It almost looks like it's sort of fused on there, but yeah, just holding really tightly to the rocks. Now, they also have all of this stuff. I'm trying to get good at my backwards pointing today. All of this stuff on the top of their body here, and those are their tentacles, and those help them eat. So since they're not as mobile as our sea star, they can't like go say, I'm gonna go over here. Actually, look like an octopus now. I'm gonna be a better sea star. I'm gonna have not as wiggly arms. We're gonna go over here and find a snack. They have to kind of hope that the snacks come to them. So they're kind of having their tentacles sway in the water, and they're hoping for a yummy snack to come by. Sometimes those are shrimps and crabs. Sometimes that might even be a little tiny fish. And what these tentacles do is they actually sting their food, kind of like their cousins, the sea jellies. They'll help sting their food, which makes them very still, and then they're going to bring those tentacles into the center of their body, right there, and that's going to be where their mouth is. Now, if you're looking for a pearly white soil on an anemone, you're not really going to find it. They're just going to have a hole there, and that's where they're going to, ooh, that's a very pretty, we're finding really pretty pictures today. Yay! It looks like tie-dye. I love it. Right there. That's where their mouth is. It's just kind of a hole that goes directly in their stomach. They have acid in there, I think, pretty similar to how our stomach helps break down our food. And that will help them get their food in there, digest it, get all the yummy nutrients out of them, and then they're going to poop out of the same hole too. But that's okay. Anyways, so they will use these nice tentacles here to help them catch some snacks and bring them into the middle where their mouth is. Now, I noticed, I think, I'm going to get out of the way so I can see, that is what that is. Okay, did you notice there's another animal here that kind of looks a little fuzzy, a little furry, a little fringy. This is actually, boop, boop, right there. That is another type of sea star called a brittle star. My brain was blanking. I knew what it was, but my brain got distracted. That's a brittle star. This is another type of sea star. They have really long, kind of snaky, flexible arms. They're another cool sea star that you might find in some typos. Thank you, Miss Carrie, for being my brain and filling in words. Just a reminder, my friends, if you have any questions today, if you are curious about something, if you want to know more about something, if you have some burning Urchin questions, you are welcome to text in those questions while we are live here on the air. That number again is 562-286-1838. So again, if you are curious about something during our program today, please feel free to send in those questions. Happy to answer questions. Again, that number is 562-286-1838. All right, my friends. So sea stars are another really interesting animal that lives in our tidepools. And they have a couple different types of those adaptations. Again, those are things that are special, that are in them or on them to help them out in their home here in the tidepools. Now, I wanted to talk about another animal that lives in the tidepools that's a little bit spikier. We'll see if we can get some images or a video. Aha! This wren right here. Right there. Now, if I touch this wren, boop, 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 it'd be pretty hard, right? This doesn't look as soft and cuddly as some of our other animal friends. So this is another animal that lives in the tide pool called a sea urchin. There's a couple different types of sea urchins out there in the world. This particular one is a purple sea urchin. That kind of makes sense, right? You're like, purple sea urchin, purple sea urchin. There is a red sea urchin, which is a little bit bigger. It is kind of a violet purpley red, but still pretty red. So a lot of our sea urchins are named a little bit after, I think, what color they look like. So I feel like that's been a pretty common naming convention with urchins. Anyways, this friend, really, really spiky. That helps keep it safe from a lot of things that might not everything, because there are some animals that do eat sea urchins, like our otter friends, but because they have really, really strong teeth. But a lot of things are not going to eat something spiky. You probably wouldn't want to eat something spiky. You're like, ooh, that looks like that would hurt the roof of my mouth and my teeth, and it'd be crunchy. That might not be a good thing to eat. So that's going to help keep it safe from a lot of things that might want to eat it as a snack. Now, if you look really, really closely in this picture, and I think Ms. Carey, we might have another picture that might show this a little clearer. You might notice between the spikes, there are, you can see it a little bit better over here, right there. There's something a lot thinner. And those are, that was the image I was hoping for. Yay! Those are their tube feet. Oh my goodness. So, sea stars and sea urchins, even though they really don't look anything alike, they're actually related to each other. They're actually cousins. So you can actually find a lot of similar adaptations between sea stars, sea urchins, and even sea cucumbers as well. So they have all these tube feet. These ones really, really stretched out like this, so you can see it a lot easier in this picture, which is very nice. And those are just like the Seastars tube feet. Those are very sticky, and they help them move around. They also help them eat. Actually, I think I can notice there's some Seastar tube feet down there. Look at that. I'm learning all sorts of fun things today. Seastar tube feet right down there. We can compare. These are a little bit thinner, a little bit wispier, a little bit more thread-like than our Seastars tube feet right down there. Anyways, similar idea though. They are going to be using those tube feet to help them move. So they're going to put one in front of the other, 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 in front of the other. They can move around if they want to. They also will use them to eat, along with their spines. So they're going to be using their tube feet and their spines to pass their food from wherever they grabbed it down to the bottom where their mouth is. They have 4 little teeth-like structures, and they actually love to eat plants. They are, one of their favorite snacks is seaweed. We can actually go back to that earlier picture of the urchin, because I think we had a nice blade of kelp there. Aha! So kelp or seaweed is this stuff on the bottom, and that is one of a urchin's favorite snacks to eat. So they will munch on that. They'll munch on it with their 4 little teeth on the bottom. I think they also might have, I can't remember if I'm thinking of a different animal. They might even have a little scraping tongue that helps them eat as well. But don't quote me on that. That's going to be my homework. I'm going to remind myself if an urchin has a radula or not. Yeah. You're right. All right, I'm thinking of a snail. Disregard. Anyways, snails have really cool scraping tongues to help them eat algae. Urchins, I think, just have their munchy little teeth to help them out. They are going to eat a lot of kelp. That is one of their favorite foods. And they are actually interconnected with otters that way. So otters love urchins. Urchins love seaweed. When we didn't have a lot of didn't have a lot of otters off of our coast, I should say, we had a lot more urchins. Because we had a lot more urchins, we didn't have a whole lot of kelp forests off of our coast, because they were like, woohoo, I'm going to go to town and eat all this kelp that's around me as a snack. This is great. So with more otters off of our coast now, things are a little bit more in balance. So they're making sure that there's just enough urchins out there so they can do what they need to do. They can help keep the kelp forest kind of trimmed. I guess you can think of them like they're doing some gardening work. But there's not so many urchins out there that they would just mow through a kelp forest, no more kelp, and then all the other animals that would need it would have to find a new home to live in. So otters help keep the urchin populations in check, not too high, not too low. That keeps our kelp forests nice and healthy. And I can tell which otters love to eat urchins because their teeth turn purple. Oh my goodness. Their teeth turn purple from eating so many urchins. They have kind of the dye that's on their, or the pigment, I should say, that's on their spines, kind of stains their teeth. I think it actually can leach into the rest of their bones too, and I think sometimes their skull will turn purple as well. It's pretty interesting. It's very similar if you've ever had a bring pop or a popsicle and like your lips are blue and your tongue blue, and you go home and your mom's like, I know what you had for a snack. That's kind of what happens with otters' teeth that love to eat urchins. It's pretty cool. Oh my goodness, my friends. So we have a couple more minutes together. Again, if you have any questions, again, please feel free to text us questions in. That number, again, is 562-286-1838. Again, 562-286-1838. You're welcome to text us questions in while we are live on the air. Please feel free if you are curious about anything. I wanted to talk about one of my other favorite animals that lives in a tide pool, and I actually wanted to talk about barnacles, and I think we might have a picture of, ooh, we do, yes, okay, barnacles, yay! These are barnacles. I think there are 2 types of barnacles in here. I think these are acorn barnacles up here, and then these are kind of your run-of-the-mill barnacles. I can't think of what the common name of a barnacle is, but this is the one I see a lot more often, and they kind of look like little gray volcanoes, and you'll find them dotting the rocks along with mussels. Right there, there's a mussel. Sometimes they even have barnacles living on the shells of mussels. These are more like cousins of clams, and these are actually a little animal as well. I love barnacles because they have such a cool story. So barnacles, when they are babies, they are really, really little. They're considered plankton. They kind of go with the flow of the water, and they are swimming around like this. And later on in their life, they decide, I'm tired of swimming, and I want to settle down. So they are going to find a nice spot to settle on. And how they stay put. Remember we were talking about our Seastars and our Urchins having a lot of sticky feet, or even our Anemone having a really strong foot on the bottom to help them out. How they stay on the rocks so they don't get knocked over by a wave is they stay on with glue. They make glue on the top of their head. It's not like glue you might use for crafts, but it's a glue that they make themselves. And they will stick their head on a rock and stand on their head. They have glued their head to the rock. They're going to stand on their head, and then they are going to build a beautiful barnacle shell around themselves. It's going to look kind of like, most times they look sort of like little volcanoes in here, and then there's a little opening right at the top, right there, that they can stick some things at. So they are standing on their head, beautiful barnacle shell around them, and they have to figure out how to eat now. Now, they are standing on their head in there. So can they use their hands? Because their hands are way down here. And their feet are in the air. So, barnacles stand on their head and they eat with their feet. So, their feet have little furry, little feathery parts to them. They will stick their feet out and catch little teeny tiny plankton, little tiny little animals and plants that are drifting in the water. Catch those up with those little fringy, frilly parts of their legs, and then bring them into the shell to eat them. So I love barnacles. I think they have a really cool story, and they're another friend you will find hanging out in the tide pool with a couple different adaptations to help them out. But yeah, barnacles stand on their head and eat with their feet. They're pretty cool. Now, if you've ever seen them, sometimes you might find them in aquariums. Sometimes you might find them if you explore some tide pools around your area. What those look like is they look almost like little eyelashes coming out. So if you ever see little eyelash, little fan-like things that might be turning this way and that, those are their little hairy feet sticking out to bring it inside so that they can munch on some snacks since they are glued to the rocks. Oh my goodness. So barnacles are another friend that lives in our tide pools. So I hope, my friends, that you have had some fun exploring tide pools today. We learned a lot. We learned what is a tide pool. So again, a tide pool is where the land and the water meet, the waves go over a bunch of rocks, and it leaves behind some water in the pools. And those can be little, those can be big, and then you have all sorts of friends that like to call it their home. And those animals that live in the tide pools, their habitat is pretty unique. They have to deal with a lot of different challenges. They have waves coming over them, so they have to make sure they can hold on and be tough. Or, like our anemones, here's another one that's taking a nap and is closed versus one that is open. They are going to have to figure out ways to deal with all those waves. So they might hold on like our Seastars. They might go with the flow like our anemones and be really flexible and sway back and forth with the motion of the ocean. They're going to deal with the tide, the water itself going in and out twice a day. So they have to figure out, how am I going to stay wet? How am I going to make sure that I have some water around me, even if the tide's gone out? How do I make sure that I'm damp enough or wet enough that I can still breathe using my skin or using my gills? And sometimes if you're wondering, like things like our clams, what they'll do is make sure there's a little bit of water on the inside of their shell and shut it really, really tight so they can keep enough water in there while the tide's out so that they have enough to breathe with. And some of our animals, too, have just really tough skin as well to help protect them. Or they have spines, like our urchins. Or they have shells, like our mussels and our clams and our barnacles. So there's a lot of different adaptations that our tidepool friends have to help them out in their homes. So we hope you had fun exploring this local habitat. Maybe you even have some tide pools around your area to check out as well. So thank you guys very much for coming. If there are any classes watching today, teachers, if you don't mind texting us in how many students are watching with you today, that just gives us a little bit of a better idea of what our viewership is. And again, that phone number again is 562-286 1838. So again, 562-286-1838. Again, you're welcome to text those numbers in just so we know a little bit better about what our viewership is and how we can best serve our communities. Now, my friends, I'm about to sign off. If you have any more questions, you can still ask them. We just ask that we email instead now that we're going to be going off the air. And that address again for email is live, L-I-V-E, at lbaop.org. L-I-V-E at lbaop.org. All right, my friends. I hope you had fun enjoying and exploring our tide pools. Definitely one of my favorite habitats. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to be signing off now. We have another program coming up at 10 o'clock, so you're welcome to stick around for that. I believe that'll be one of our bilingual programs. And I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.